Everyone, welcome to week 9 of Parenting Inside Out. This week we will be focusing on directions and encouragements, as well as rules, rewards, and consequences. Take a second to jot down any victories that you've had over the past week. Some of our takeaway messages for the first part of this lesson include: yelling and shouting orders is rarely effective other than to train children to tune us out. And giving helpful directions involves being clear, specific, speaking to the child at their level, and not giving too much to do at one time. Giving helpful directions is a part of helpful structure. Structure needs to be balanced with nurture. Encouragement for compliance helps balance the giving of directions. A sample learning goal for today could include: I would like to learn how to consistently give effective directions and encouragement to train my preschool child to comply with the directions that I give her. You can take a second and write down a learning goal for today. Children don't always respond immediately to parents' requests, commands, or directions, and that can be frustrating. In today's lesson, we're going to add some more tools to our parenting toolbox that will increase the chance that our children will comply with what we ask of them. So far, we've talked about lots of ways to nurture, love, and connect with children. We've talked about giving encouragements to tell them what is wonderful about them, playing with them, reading to them, calling them on the phone, touching them gently by holding and hugging them, validating their feelings that they have through emotion coaching, and speaking their love language. These are all ways to love and cherish our children. They're all different ways we can nurture our children. These are all important and helpful ways to parent. All of the things that we do to connect are very important, but if all we do is nurture our children's lives, it'll be out of balance. If we parent with lots of love, but no structure, rules, or discipline, what kind of parenting are we doing? If you think back to our very first week when we talked about the 3 different parenting styles, we can probably say that if we are parenting in a way that only includes nurturing and no structure, that might be a reflection of putty parenting, or very loving but not providing any structure. So next we can think about, what is the impact of no structure on our children? They could be anxious from lack of directions. Our households may not run smoothly, and our children may not learn the skills they need to be successful in life. Children and our homes need structure. Structure includes routines, family rules, age-appropriate expectations, consequences, chores, and family values and standards. Think back to the very first week of class. What kind of parenting are we doing if we offer structure but no nurture? That would be aligned with block parenting. What is the impact of no nurture on our children? They might not feel loved, they might not feel connected to us, and they might rebel against us. The challenge in parenting is to balance nurture and structure, opposing but complementary pairs of actions. To be helpful parents, we must learn to balance. For example, we can balance encouragements, which would be nurture, with age-appropriate expectations, which would be structure. We can balance playing with chores, reading time with routines, calling them on the phone with appropriate follow-through, validating their feelings with appropriate consequences, gentle touch with appropriate consequences, and speaking their love language with family standards. If we imagine a scale, our whole goal is to keep those 2 sides in balance so that our home and our parenting is creating the best outcome for our children. What happens when we have both nurture and structure in our parenting? Like I just said, our scale is going to be really balanced. Our children are more likely to be responsive. They're more likely to be happier and less stressed because they have this balance of nurture and love and caring, but also structure and routine. If we think back to our parenting styles, what kind of parenting does this remind you of? Most of you are probably thinking about backbone parenting, which would be correct. What is the impact of backbone parenting? Children typically feel loved and cherished and have a good self-esteem. They feel connected to us and are more likely to follow rules. Our rules and standards and consequences help them grow up to be competent and capable individuals. I want you to think for a second about this question. How often do children comply with a command or direction given by their parents or caregivers? If you can, just jot down a number or a percentage that comes to your mind. Children comply only about 70% of the time, or after 7 out of 10 requests. This means that the average child does not comply 30% of the time. Lack of compliance with parental requests, commands, or directions is a frustration that most parents will experience at one time or another. Let's take a look at some effective and ineffective ways to encourage our children to comply with directions. If we look at this handout here, there's 3 different columns. The first column is labeled "Do this." The middle column is labeled "For example," and the farthest column on the right is labeled "But not this." We're going to go through this, and I would encourage you to take note of things that resonate with you or things that you would like to implement into your own parenting. For example, we would like to go to the child and gain their attention. An example could be touching them gently or making eye contact or getting down on their level. There's a huge benefit to kneeling down or getting down on a level with your kids that can really help them be more responsive to what you have to say. What you shouldn't do is shout across the room or from another room. Getting our kids' attention can be the first step when we're asking them or hoping that they will be compliant with the direction that we give. Next, be clear and specific about what you want the child to do and name behaviors. For example, please pick up the toys and put them on the shelves. But don't do this. Get these toys cleaned up. Children are much more likely to be compliant if they have concise and specific and short instructions. The third one down says, give 1 or 2 directions at a time, depending on the child's age. For example, please brush your teeth and put on your pajamas. You're more likely for your child to be compliant if you give 1 or 2 simple directions versus giving an entire long list of things they need to do. For example, don't do this. Go upstairs, put on your pajamas, brush your teeth, clean up your toys, and pick out a book for us to read. It's unlikely that we'll be setting up our kids for success if we give them an entire long list of things to do. Next, do this. Use few words. For example, it's time to get in the car. But don't do this. Get in the car or else we will be late and then I'd be upset because we might miss our appointment and I would have to reschedule. It can be really easy to feel this way if we feel hurried or frustrated about trying to get somewhere, but you're more likely for your child to be compliant if you stay simple and quick and just state what you are asking them to do. Next one, give child a warning. For example, in 10 minutes, it will be time to come inside and have lunch, so finish up what you're working on. But don't do this. Get in here right now, it's time for lunch. No, you may not finish your mud pie. Come in now. This makes me think about when we were talking about our lesson about play and reading and how it can be really beneficial to give kids a heads up when it's time to switch from one activity to another. They're much more likely to follow your instructions if they have at least some kind of warning or some kind of heads up instead of being surprised and have to stop their fun activity right in the middle of it. Next one, give a when and then direction. When you finish washing the car, then you may play softball with your friends. But don't do this. If you don't finish washing that car, you won't be playing softball. Lastly, do this. Thank the child for their cooperation. For example, thanks for making your bed. Your room looks so nice now. But don't do this. It's about time you got that bed made, for once your room doesn't look like a pigsty. As you can see, It's much more beneficial to state the things that we'd like our kids to do in a positive way instead of telling them things that we don't want to see or that we don't want to have them do. Take a second and highlight some of these things that could be beneficial for you to use with your children. As parents, we spend a lot of time each day giving our children directions. We might give 20 to 30 directions in a day. Some parents believe that children should just comply, that it's expected, and that they shouldn't have to give any words of affirmation, encouragement, or appreciation. We're now going to look at these two examples right here. If we give directions only to our kids, it would look something like this. Please pick up your backpack and put it in the closet. It's time to brush your teeth and get in bed. Or please set the table for dinner. Now, if we look at this with some encouragements along with the directions, it can add a lot more love and warmth in showing that you really appreciate that your children are being cooperative. So for example, if you're asking them to pick up their backpack and put it in the closet, you could also say, I appreciate how neat the living room looks when all the backpacks are put away. If you ask them to brush their teeth and get into bed, you could also say, thank you for listening. Now we have time for an extra story. And number 3, if you ask them to set the table, you could also say, thank you for setting the table. It looks so nice. There's always room and space to add extra encouragements and affirmations along with the requests that we ask our children to do. This worksheet here is not in your workbook, but it was emailed to you. It has some tips for giving effective encouragement to your children. We're going to go through a few of these together, and you can highlight the ones that make the most sense to you. When giving an encouragement, tell the child specifically what he or she did well. For example, you folded the laundry, made your bed, and vacuumed. Your room looks so clean. Not just saying, your room looks nice. Number 2, avoid adding in anything negative. You did a great job of remembering to put your bike away before coming inside. Not, you did a great job of remembering to put your bike away before coming inside. Why can't you do that every day? It can be very tempting or easy for us as parents, after we compliment or acknowledge something that our kids did well, to add in something that maybe we still are frustrated about. It'd be really helpful for us to kind of withhold that and just simply focus on celebrating the success that our kids have. Number 3, be brief and specific. Thank you for putting the food away after making your snack. Not, you're the best kid there ever was. I can count on you to always do what you are supposed to. Number 4, use words children understand. Thanks for remembering to rinse your dishes before putting them in the dishwasher. Not, I really appreciate that you've taken into account my repeated requests to move the residue from the plates before inserting them into the dishwasher. This one might sound kind of funny to us as adults, but it is important to remember the age and developmental stage of our kids and think about what is going to make sense to them and what's going to resonate with them. Number 5, remember to give encouragement with a friendly facial expression, eye contact, open body language, and a pleasant tone of voice. These are all really helpful tips that you can keep in mind as you're focusing on giving your kids encouragement. One thing that I'd like to highlight is thinking about being really brief and specific. While sometimes it can be exciting to be overly excited or overly dramatic about something because you really want to celebrate your kids, sometimes just being really specific is going to be the most helpful to them because they know exactly what it is that you're thankful for. If they know, oh, mom really appreciated that I cleaned up my room or that I put my shoes away or that I hung up my backpack, I know I should do that again. Instead of making general statements about how wonderful our kids are, we can tell them very specifically what we appreciate that they did, and they're more likely to do that same action again. I'd encourage you to use a lot of these tips when you're focusing on encouraging your kids. For the very last part of this lesson, we're going to circle back to our learning goal. For example, if your learning goal was, I'd like to learn how to consistently give effective directions and encouragement to train my preschool child to comply with directions I give her, one way that you might have accomplished this is thinking about how it was very helpful to read through the different types of encouragements and focus on including them when giving directions. The examples of what to do and what not to do might have given you some great ideas. And one way that you can use this new skill, idea, or attitude, I might specifically practice using fewer words in my directions and including encouragements when my daughter has shown cooperation. Go ahead and wrap up your learning goal for this lesson.